Hello everyone. I hope you're doing very well. This is Patel. I'm one of the web leads at NITK. And yeah, welcome to week 3. This week we'll have a look at models. Going back to the week 1 videos, let me give you a quick recap of what models are. So simply the model layer is responsible for storing and processing data. So in a web application, we studied that there are three parts. In the MVC architecture, there are three things: the model, the view, and the controller. And the model is basically responsible for holding your data. Now, there are two types of databases: relational, non-relational. But in this case, we'll be going ahead with relational databases. In a relational database, basically tables are interlinked with each other. They have relations with each other. That we'll cover later. Right now, let's just stick to one table. Um, so how does a relational database store information, right? So relational database stores information in terms of tables, as the name suggests. And if we just look at this diagram from, I just picked it up from Google. Um, this is how the data generally looks. So this particular entire table is called a relation. That is why the name relational databases. Every column is called an attribute. Okay, columns are called attributes, and every row, is a record or a tuple. Because this is where one information is sort of stored. And there's other stuff you can go through and stuff. The number of rows is called cardinality. The number of columns is called degree. So in future, if you take up some course on DBMS, you will basically study all of this in depth. Coming back to what we are going to focus today. So SQL is used to access uh, uh, SQL is generally used for relational database. It's basically means structured query language. So in this case, this is how the SQL syntax would look to create a table. It as the name as the syntax very clearly says, create table, name of the table, and then it has a bunch of columns. So employee number is the column, and it has a data type. So in this case, the data type is integer. We are saying that the values inside the employee number column can only be integers. Similarly, name is of the type varchar. Now, varchar is a very SQL thing. Now, varchar means that it can be a variable size string, and bracket 80 means that the maximum size of the string can be 80. Um, a quick homework for you would be to look up that why is it called varchar, and also look up for fixed size data type, which is very similar to varchar. The next is address, which is also varchar 255. That means the maximum limit is now 255. Title is similar as name. Phone number, that is again varchar 10. The maximum limit will be 10 because phone numbers are size of 10. And then salary is of decimal, which means that it's not just integers are basically just they do not include the fractional numbers, and you cannot have decimal points. But in salary, of course, you can have that. So um, let's get straight into how we'll create this in Rails. So um, for the purpose of this bootcamp, we will be creating a very cool application which is an activity tracker. An activity tracker, something like Google Fit or something, which basically lets you track your activities. You can log how many calories you burned when you started your workout or whatever session you did, cycling, jogging, running, whatever you want, and when you did it, for how long you did it, what's been your progress, etc. through weeks. This is what we'll build, and every week we'll add on to the layers, starting with the modules and then progressing to controllers and then moving forward to styling using views, etc. So we'll learn Rails as well, and you'll have a very cool activity tracker at the end. Awesome. So yeah, we let's get started. I am in the code space, so I just created a code space from the link that we provided before. Uh, if you're not familiar with this, you can go back to the instructions and setup and etc. You set up your local workspace. Um, and I hope you have followed these instructions for the first Hello World sort of application, so that you know how the data structure etc. is. If not, please go through this documentation. You'll find the links in the GitHub, bootcamp link, the GitHub repository. I'm sorry, and then you can just follow this. Um, After that, it's so right now it's just a plain repo. You pull the latest changes. After you head into, let's switch to week three. Inside week 10, I've just CD'd into week three now. I hope the font is big enough, and that's why I made it, so large. Um, okay, okay, all right. So just quickly clear this. Okay. So I am in week three right now. Then you see, then you're supposed to CD into activity tracker. So I've already created the Rails application for you. All you have to follow is just models part for now. So you CD into week three, CD into activity tracker. And if you just do ls, you'll find a bunch of things already there. I hope you're aware with the general structure of a Rails application. But to quickly summarize the important parts, app basically, let me just open this preview. So if you go into Active Tracker, the app basically has your the important things like controllers, the models and the views, etc. And uh, we'll cover this in depth in the later sessions. And DB is where the database, etc. is stored. So what we can do now is let's first quickly check if the application is running. So let me close this and let's say Rails S. Okay, this is telling me the command is not found. No problem. What we can do is let's just copy this command rvm use. So troubleshooting, if you also come across the same errors, just go ahead what I'm doing. Let's just do install Rails. Do this. Shouldn't come, but I think this is coming with code spaces. All right, I think this should now work. Rails, oops, Rails. Yes. All right, this is running. Let's head over to port 3000. Still not coming. Let's see. Okay, that looks good. We're on Rails 7. We're running Rails application. Awesome. Let me just close the server by pressing Control C. And let's get started. So the first command you run is Rails. Let me just clear out all this. Clear. Okay, so let's run Rails DB create. To create the test database for us. So for the purpose of the demo, we are using this database called SQLite. You might have heard about other databases like MySQL and PostgreSQL, etc. But for development purposes, SQLite just comes inbuilt with Rails, and it's pretty decent for development purposes, I mentioned. After running Rails DB create, the next command is we can go ahead and create our model. So as we saw the SQL statement of saying create table, table name, and the attributes. For Rails, we use something known as generators, which help us, generate uh, specific things. So in this case, we will write Rails generate, or you can simply say Rails G, and that will also work. Then you say, I need a model, so I need to generate a model. So I say Rails generate model. The name of the model, and since we're creating an activity tracker, we will call it the activity. The name of the table will be activity. And then we need 5 types of attributes. So as we discussed, we'll have a title of the activity. Um, we'll have a duration, we'll have a type, we'll have calories. So let's get started with that. We can have title. Let's have it as string. Next thing is type. Let's have it as string also. Next was, I believe, start. Start, let it be date time because we want to capture both the date and the time in one timestamp, from which we can extract the date and time and sort our data, etc. Then we need a duration that can be a decimal, and lastly calories, which can be integer. Okay, so let's run it. So now if you see, this is creating a lot of files for us. So one thing is it invokes active record. and tells us to create a bunch of files. One of them is a migration file, and one of them is called activity.rb. So this is basically the model file. Here you can write more model functions. It says class activity, which is inheriting from the class application record. You would see more of this application record in every model. Next is test units are just for testing, and this is where the tests are live for any kind of testing on the model that you would like to do. This is very interesting. It's something known as a migration file. Let me just bring back the console. Okay. So essentially, what migration files are, they help Rails keep track of what to run first. Migration is it contains information about what needs to go into the database. So similar to the SQL syntax of it's a transition, or you can say it's a Rails way of creating a table instead of just using raw SQL queries. In this says that in this one it has a timestamp. This timestamp basically denotes when this migration was ran, or when this migration was created. I'm sorry, when this file was created, and followed by the action. So similar to create activities here is written in camel case, but in the file name is written in snake case. That essentially captures what this particular migration is trying to do. And migrations basically help Rails keep track of what to run in order. So when it's creating a database, it will know what to run first, which migration to run first. If we look at the migration file, it says class create activities, which is inheriting from the active record migration parent class, and it has a 7.2 attribute because we are running Rails 7. Then it has a function called change, and change basically contains, again, very intuitive, says create table. Inside def change, you can have other things as well. You can have like rename column, etc. You can read about that. But for now, let's just stick to create table. It says create table and activities. Note that we had called it activity, but Rails automatically pluralizes it because that's how it keeps track of things. And it says do t. That means it's telling what attributes or what columns to create. And it says t dot string. That means make a column of the string data type and name it as title. Similarly, create a column with string data type and call it type. And then date time for start, decimal for duration, integer for calories. Another interesting thing which you'll notice is t dot timestamps, and you would say, hey, we did not put this. How did this come on its own? So this is part of Rails magic. T dot timestamps basically has two things, which is uh, the created at and the updated at columns, which are automatically added to every model. So whenever a new record is inserted in the activity table, it will also it will record when it was created and the last updated timestamp as well. So this was about migrations. And every time you want to make a change to the database, suppose you want to add a new column to an existing table, or you want to add a new table, or you want to rename a column, or just change the data type of a column, or drop a table for that matter, etc. All of these will go through a migration. So you will first generate a migration file, review your changes, etc. And then you will commit it to not exactly commit, you will migrate it to the database. So the next command that let me just clear out this console. The next command we'll run is Rails db migrate. So this will now go to the database. Until now, it has not been migrated to the database. It's just a migration file. So you first make a migration and then migrate it to the database. You will have to do this every time you make a migration. So now let's run Rails db migrate. So as you can see, it says migrating the migration, and it took this much more seconds to uh, migrate, and it says migrated this particular migration file. Now if you see, there's another file called schema.rb. Now schema.rb is like a snapshot of your database. This Here you can see what tables, etc. you have created by now, and it keeps a track of the tables, etc. with their data types as we mentioned. And now you can see the date time created at and t.date time updated at, as I was mentioning. That's it. Very simple. Um, Now you can just run raise test to check if all the tests are running, and if everything is good, you can submit a pull request. Thank you. Bye bye.